4-H members and your families. We are today creating a video that will help you get through your first skill builder in your Snacking Sense module. This is mine, the leader guide. It's a little bit different than yours, but essentially it has all the same information. So, Snacking Sense. Why are we talking about Snacking Sense? Well, up to now in 4-H, for those of you that have been participating for a while, you will know that food and healthy living is very important to everybody. So we're learning about how to create healthy snacks so that we are not putting a lot of sugar and processed foods into our bodies each day. So in the Snacking Sense module, you're going to open it up to your Skill Builder 1, Morning Munch. Now we're going to talk a little bit about healthy snacks. So lots of times people are busy, and we don't have time to always grab something and eat it that's good for our bodies. It's really easy to go into the corner store or even the grocery store and buy a bar or a bag of chips or something that isn't going to meet your body's needs. So we're going to learn in this book some simple and easy and quick recipes so that when it's time for you to have a healthy snack, you'll have one prepared for you already, or you can make one really quick. So think about what a snack is. A snack is a small portion of food or drink or a light meal. And we also want to learn a little bit about trans fat, which is an ingredient in the food that you're eating. And you don't want to have a lot of trans fats in your food. And calories is something that you will learn about a lot later on in your life. But what it is it's the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius from the standard initial temperature at 1 atmosphere pressure, energy in food. Yeah. So, anyway, we need to eat probably every 3 or 4 hours, depending on how active you are, or if you're like me and you have diabetes. So you want to make sure that you are eating healthy and that your body is using up the calories or the energy that your body is intaking. So you want to prepare yourself for success. And the way we're going to do that is by learning to prepare easy snacks, okay? So think about what you like to snack on during the day. At our meeting next Wednesday, we're going to talk about the Canada Food Guide. There's one in your bag, and when you look at it, you can see that these are the foods that you should be eating every day at some part of your day, and how much. So if you look at your plate, you want to make sure that on your plate you have this much, and this much, and this much of each of these types of foods. Now when you're having a snack, it's a little bit more difficult because a snack is a smaller portion, right? So a snack might just be a piece of fruit, or it might be a sandwich, something like that, or a bar that you've made. Today we're going to make a couple different snacks, and you're going to start to learn about healthy choices for your snacking. So think about right now what you have for snacks. What do you have in your lunch when you have healthy snack in the morning? At school? What do you have in your cupboards? So if you want to get up and you're watching TV and you want to go and have something, are you going to your Halloween bag and taking out a chocolate bar? And so our first recipe that we're going to do today is called Granny-ola. And your adult is going to help you go through these recipes. You can follow along with the video and pause it whenever you need to, or you can just watch the video and do your recipe after the video is over. Either way works. As you are preparing to do your recipes, make sure you read the entire recipe first. if you're really keen, excuse me, you'll notice in my video that I made a mistake in one of my recipes, and I had to redo it, but I tried to sneak it in. So watch for that. You might see it. Let me know afterwards if you've seen it or not, if you've caught it. So anyway, yeah, read the recipe first so that you know everything that you need. Then get out all your ingredients and set them out on your clean workspace. Make sure your workspace is clean. That's very important. And not just your ingredients, but your measuring utensils. This makes it a lot easier to get your recipe done quickly and efficiently, is to ensure that everything is laid out at the beginning. And while you're going through your recipe, reading it first, you can get all those things ready so that you know exactly what you're doing and you won't miss anything. Then read your directions and what you're supposed to do, because of course there's a specific order that you're supposed to do things in. Excuse me. So yeah, get your ingredients together. Just so you know, the recipes you're going to be doing today are graniola, unidentified fried objects, and the cinnamon bread, and orange Julius. The cinnamon bread takes a long time to bake in the oven, so we did that one first, so that when we were finished everything, we could enjoy all of them at the same time. But because they're snacks, you don't have to do it that way. I just did it that way because my grandkids were here at that time, and I wanted them to try each of the recipes. So good luck, and when you are done your recipes, excuse me, I'd like you to post on our Facebook page a video of yourself enjoying or not enjoying the video, and telling us what you thought of the recipe, how easy it was to make, if you liked it or didn't like it, and if it's something that you would make again. So you're going to need your book, you're going to need your adult, and you're going to need all your ingredients that you got in your 4-H in a box. Have fun. I'm going to start the cinnamon bread recipe now. It is in your book, and it's a great recipe. It's super easy, which is what I love the most about this recipe. Well, it tastes really good too. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to turn on your oven to 350. Always preheat your oven, and so that it's ready to bake your recipe properly. If you throw your food in the oven before it's preheated, it might not cook internally as the recipe tells you for the time. And so just make sure it's preheated before you put your food in the oven. So your recipe calls for 15-ounce can of pumpkin. So last night I took a pumpkin and I roasted it. Sorry, my phone's in the way. I roasted it in the oven until it was soft, and then I pureed it in my food processor. So you might have frozen pumpkin, or you might have a can of pumpkin. Either way, both will work. So you're going to measure out in your measuring cup 425 milliliters of pumpkin, which is almost 2 cups. Now remember, when you're using a liquid measuring cup, to bend over and make sure that you're looking at it at eye level so that you have as exact measurement as you can. So there it is. That might even be a little bit too much. I'm going to be making some more pumpkin recipes later on today, so I'm not going to freeze this pumpkin, but pumpkin puree like this is really good to freeze and lasts a long time. Okay, so the recipe says to heat your oven to 350. We did that. And to coat 2 standard loaf pans with cooking spray. Now, I don't have a standard loaf pan that I'm going to use today. I have a bigger one, so I'm only going to use one. The loaf pans that I gave you guys are smaller, And so this recipe will be perfect for, for 2 of those. So take your cooking spray. If you don't have cooking spray, you can use margarine or oil, butter. Just put some on a paper towel and wipe it around your pan. Make sure you get the corners really good, because it's usually the corners that the food likes to stick to. So you give it a good coating and just let it sit there and wait while you are preparing everything. Okay, so next, it says that in a food processor, combine the pumpkin puree, bananas, vanilla extract, and eggs. Now, I am not going to use my food processor for this. I'm going to do it by hand, simply because I haven't done the dishes yet since I processed the pumpkin puree last night. However, a food processor would make this go a lot faster for you. So you can choose to do that if you want. I'm going to just use my bowl. So whenever you're using bananas in a recipe, it always says to use ripe bananas. Now, have you ever wondered why the recipes call for specifically white or ripe bananas? Well, first of all, people don't like to eat bananas, especially kids, when they have brown spots. Beauty is important to people in their food. So lots of people won't eat ripe bananas just because they're ugly. Another reason is because they're a lot easier to mash when they're ripe, because they're softer. And the last reason that we like to use ripe bananas in recipes is because they are sweeter. So you don't have to add as much sugar when you are using a ripe banana, because bananas are very high in natural sugar, and the riper they get, the more sweet they are. So we'll mash these up really well with a fork. You can use a potato masher, or you can use a Tupperware chopper, whatever you think will work for you. I like to use a fork. And there. Video is not very clear, sorry. So my bananas are nicely ripe. I don't like chunky banana in my loaf. I don't mind it in cakes and muffins, but not in my loaf. So I try to make it as nice and as smooth as possible. But that's a personal preference, so that's up to you. You can mash yours lots, or you can mash it a little bit. It's all personal choice. When your kids were taking Discover Foods with Mel, they learned that when they break an egg, to do it in its own bowl, singly, by itself first, because you don't want to have any spots or unwanted things in your eggs. So just break one at a time in a dish. Now look at these beautiful eggs that we got from Round the Bend Farm. A couple of you got some, but most of you got store-bought eggs, because Sean didn't come until after I had already delivered the packages. So make sure when you break your egg that there are no shells, of course, in your bowl, and no unwanted spots. Then give it a nice gentle beating, with your fork. This recipe calls for 2 eggs. Do one, put it in your bowl, do another. When you're making a recipe, when you're baking, the egg size that you need to use is large. They don't say that in some recipes, they just assume that you know that. But if you didn't know that, then you now have that knowledge. So you're going to beat those 2 eggs and put them in your bowl. There's the bowl. You're done. All right. So now you're going to add your wet ingredients. They're calling for your pumpkin, your bananas, your vanilla, and your eggs. So here goes the bananas. I used to be a really big fan of cooking shows, and I remember watching Martha Stewart. She was one of the first cooking programs that I used to watch, and she never wasted anything. She always cleaned out her bowls, and if something rolled off to the side, she always picked it up and put it in the recipe anyway. And then I remember later on watching other shows and how often the cooks in those shows would waste and leave things in the bottom of the dish, and oh, it was just amazing to me how people would let food get wasted like that. But that's just me. Okay, so there's my pumpkin, my banana, my eggs. Now I'm going to do my vanilla. You need 1 teaspoon. I'm sorry for those of you whose vanilla spilt in your bags. I hope you guys have some at home that you can use. Vanilla adds a nice flavoring and is used in a lot of baking recipes, probably most of them. So you need a teaspoon. Now remember, when you are measuring, again in a liquid measure, to bend over and get eye level so that you have enough. I always add a little bit extra because I really like the vanilla flavor in my baking. That's my preference though. So you're going to get that nicely mixed in. Make sure you don't splash yourself because it can get a little bit messy at this point because it's all liquid still. There we go. It looks good. Okay, so now you're going to add your dry ingredients. So what makes this this cinnamon bread a little bit more healthy is that it's not using white flour. It's using whole wheat flour. We want to make sure that our bodies get a good dose of whole grains every day rather than the white flour products. Now this is because when the grain is still in its whole form, it provides more nutrients for you. And when it's not in its whole form, then there have been products that have been added to it, or may be added, I shouldn't say that. Products may be added to it to make it last longer. Okay, so there's the whole wheat. Now, the quick rolled oats, I'm just going to move this aside for a second. The quick rolled oats are a little bit of a different story because what happened was I gave you the wrong ones. I gave you large flakes. Now, the difference there is that when you are baking, the large flake oats, they're heartier and they will make your recipe a little bit more chewy. So they're more appropriate for cookies and things like that. But in a loaf, you want your oats to be oven's ready. You want your oats to be the quick cooking because the flakes are a little bit smaller, and it will make your bread have a smoother consistency. So what I have here, and you don't have to do this. I'm sorry, if you don't have one of these, go ahead and use your large flakes, but they'll just be your bread will just be a little bit more heartier. So what this is, it's a grinder. And what it does is it just grinds it down to make it a little bit smaller. So I've ground it into a nice, almost a fine powder. And I'm going to pour that into my bowl. That was 1 cup. And I'm going to open up another bag because I used up all the other ones just now. And I'm going to pour that into my measuring cup. So yeah, don't worry about the flakes. It's not going to make too big of a difference. It's going to taste just as good. It's just going to be a little bit more heartier. So I'm going to grind up these ones. I'm not going to grind them up as fine. but I wanted to show you in the video how it looked. So I'm just going to grind these ones up just a little bit. There. Perfect. Just the way they should be. There we go. Okay. I'm going to unplug that. Okay, so then you're going to add in 3/4 cup of flax meal. Oh, by the way, you may have noticed that the recipe calls for 1 cup of quick rolled oats. But what I did was, because I ground it down so fine, I added extra. Okay, so now, but don't do that in yours. Now the flax meal. Now if you haven't had flax meal, it's got a lot of health benefits to it. It's very high in omega-3 fats, which is great for your heart. And it is supposedly good for your cholesterol, but I'm not a health person, so I don't know that for sure, but that's what I was reading on the internet. And it's also high in fiber, and fiber is really important for your diet, so you should always try to have a little bit of fiber where you can. So I know my parents eat a lot of flax meal. I don't eat it too much, but I get fiber from a lot of other foods. But this is a good way for those of you who need those health benefits to get it into your diet, because you don't really taste it that much, so it's pretty darn good to have it. Then we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons, sugar's next, jumping ahead. Now, because I'm a diabetic, I do not use regular sugar, and I would like to have some of this bread when it comes out of the oven. So I buy Truvia, the brown sugar. A lot of the sugar substitutes have a yucky aftertaste for me, and I don't like them. And they're made out of a lot of different products that probably shouldn't be going into my food. So Truvia is a good alternative. It is not made with anything that is something that doesn't make me very happy about eating. It's made with good ingredients. So I am going to put some Truvia sugar in my cinnamon bread instead of white sugar. But you would put white sugar in yours. Now it calls for 3/4 cup. So using a dry measure out your sugar. Now you learned about dry measure and wet measure in Melanie's cooking class, so you know the difference. This is a dry measure. And with this Truvia, you only add a half of the amount. You don't add the whole amount, which is good too. Okay, so there's my sugar. So now we're going to add the baking powder and the baking soda. So, what is the reason for adding both baking powder and baking soda? Well, they're both leavening agents, which means that they help your food to rise, and you always want to have your bread nice and high and fluffy. Now, baking soda has a scientific name called sodium bicarbonate, and it's activated by liquid, one that generally has some sort of an acid in it, like lemon juice. And we need 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda in this recipe. Then baking powder has both. It has baking soda in it, and then the other ingredient to make it a complete leavening agent, which is an acid ingredient. But why would they call for both? Now, they would call for both in a recipe because the recipe might contain an acid, but not quite enough to make the bread rise high enough. So that's why it calls for a little bit of extra boost from the baking soda or the baking powder. So that's why some recipes call for both baking powder and baking soda. Okay, so now we're going to add in the pumpkin pie spice. If you don't like pumpkin pie spice, you can add cinnamon and allspice. Pumpkin pie spice is a great ingredient because it has the spices are all blended together for you already. There's cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, cloves, and that's what, you don't have to buy all of them this way, you just have to buy the one. So it kind of helps in that aspect. I love all of these ingredients and they give me a good feeling of Christmas, holidays, fall. They smell so good. I love them. But yeah, it's up to you. I gave you some in your package, but if you would rather, go ahead and just use the cinnamon. Some people really, really despise pumpkin pie spice, but I like it. So I'm going to switch over from my spatula to a wooden spoon because the wooden spoon's a little bit stronger. And we're going to stir this in so that the dry ingredients are well incorporated into the wet. And you want it to be nice and smooth. You don't want any dry ingredients left. You want it to all be mixed together nicely. Now that everything is all incorporated nicely, it's nice and smooth, and yeah, get it into your pan. Now you're going to do 2 loaves. I'm just doing 1. So my loaf is going to take a little bit longer to cook than yours because my pan is bigger. So I'm going to set that accordingly for my oven. But your loaves should take about 45 to 50 minutes to bake. Mine's going to take about an hour. I like to scrape out my bowl. And it looks and smells really great. And your house is going to smell really great while it's baking. It smells going to get better and better. So get that in there. This also makes easy wash up too when you're doing your dishes. You don't have a bunch of food going down your drain, which is not a good thing coming from a plumber's daughter. So even it out in the pan so that it cooks evenly as well. That last little bit in there. It looks really good. All right, so let's get that in the oven and we will set the timer. There, it's in my oven. And we're gonna set the timer. I'm gonna do mine for an hour. You do yours for 50 minutes. The timer's gone for the bread. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take a toothpick and we're going to poke it to make sure that it's done. So the trick to that is to be very careful, is to take your toothpick and stick it in generally the highest area of your bread, your loaf. Stick it in, pull it out, and see if it is clear. So there's nothing really on here, so that means that the loaf is done. So I'm going to take it out of the oven and stick it on the stove or put it on a pot holder so that you don't burn your countertop. And just let it cool off for a couple minutes and then take it out of the pan. You don't want to leave it in the pan too long because it'll get soggy on the bottom. So yeah, give it a couple minutes to cool off in there and then take it out. We have our whole wheat bread and Layla's going to start putting the butter on it, or the margarine I should say. This recipe calls for margarine, which really surprises me because, yeah, push it over just a little bit, my girl. It surprises me that it calls for margarine because butter is a much healthier choice. So in this case though, margarine is a little bit easier to spread, so that's why we're letting Layla use margarine. You've got the frying pan on the burner and it's getting hot because they say that you should use a hot frying pan. So I'm just going to pass the phone over to Layla so she can do the video while I finish the buttering the margarine for her. So pass me the knife, thank you. Now you hold that. Oh, don't put your finger over it. Right, okay, so we're gonna put margarine on here. And this is the hard part. Your counter's gonna get a little bit dirty, but that's okay. You're gonna put a little bit of butter on the other side.
What are you making?
We're making eggs. Watch out because the stove is really hot. Then you're going to cut a hole in the center for your egg. Okay, so now Layla's gonna pass me the phone again, and she's gonna quickly break an egg into the cup, into the measuring cup. I'll move the bread here so she has room. Layla's pretty good at breaking eggs. Okay, there she goes. She knows what to do with it. Is there any shells in there? Get them out.
I can't get this shell out.
You can't get the shell out? Try not to break the yolk while you're digging in there. So we're going to put the frying pan back on the heat so that it heats it up. We took it off for a second there while we turned off the camera. Then we're going to put the bread here. And Layla's going to pour the egg in the center. Try not to break the yolk if you like your yolks to be solid. There it goes. Now she's going to sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper on. We use a grinder for ours. I find that it gives it a nice fresh taste, but that's not necessary. Okay, that's lots. Yeah, you don't want to put too much salt. A little bit of pepper, and that will be good. Just a little bit of a twist, couple twists. Good, beautiful, perfect. All right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to wait for the white to turn white on the bottom of the pan. You can sort of see it there.
So can I leave now?
Layla wants to leave now. So we're just going to give it a couple seconds and then we'll flip it over in a couple minutes. We just want it to cook a little bit first. Not too much though, because if you cook it too much, it'll burn.
And I don't want to eat burnt food.
No, but we're going to wait till the bottom gets a little bit more white and then we'll flip it over. Right there. Okay, move it. Thank you. Ready? Here we go. Okay, I'm just going to give it a good flip here. Ready? 1, 2, 3, flip. See how nice and brown it is? That's how you want it to look. So we're just going to let it cook for a few more seconds and then it will be ready. So they're nicely finished and beautifully looking. I like my eggs nice and soft. So my yolks are perfect for me. Nice and runny. And you can dip your bread into it. It's all right there and waiting for you. So I hope you guys enjoy this. This is a nice healthy alternative for breakfast. And your kids can help you make them. Joe and Layla are going to help make the Orange Julius recipe. Joe, can you take the lid off of that, please? You got to push down on the button. Yep. If you don't have a blender, don't fret. You can take your ice cubes and you can put them in a couple of plastic bags and just smash it with something. Smash them, crush them up with something. So Layla's putting the ice cubes in. Layla, why don't you stand up and do that? You might be able to reach a little bit better. Don't break it apart. It's okay. Go on your knees or stand up. Okay. So you're going to put the ice cubes. Just put them all in there. You don't have to break them up. Yep. Put them in there. You can just dump the whole bowl in there. The recipe calls for 18. Not yet, Joe. Not yet. Layla, just pour them in there. It's going to take, it'll be a little bit faster. Just be careful, don't dump them on the floor. Good job. Okay, now Joseph, oops, can you take the brown sugar? Once again, I'm using my Truvia sugar because I absolutely love this recipe. Yep, put it in there. Good, put that in the bowl. Yep. Layla's going to pour the orange juice in. Yeah, just give it a tap. Good. Tap it, tap it, tap it. Okay, now Joseph is going to pour the water. Can you pass that water cup to Joe, please? Thank you. Pour it in gently so it doesn't spill. Good. Very good, okay.
Build.
Just a little bit, that's okay. All right, put the lid. All right, put the lid back on. Make sure the arrows are matching. Nope, nope, nope. The arrow has to be matching. Just wait, Layla. Nope. Find the little white arrow right here on the lid. See this little white arrow? It matches with that arrow. Okay, then push it down and then push the handle down.
Now?
It's not going to work because it's not closed properly. Let's see if Grandma can do it. There we go. Okay, you have to turn the power on first. Let's turn the power on this one first. This one first, Joe. Yep, push it so it's red. Okay, nope, this one. Okay, now Grandma's going to take the lid off because it's going to be dripping. It doesn't take too long to mix this up in the blender, which is nice. Now this recipe is one of my favorites that I've been making for many, 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 many years with 4-H.
Orange juice.
It's called Orange Julius. It's a very nice orange juice that you can drink.
What's going to taste like? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, it's going to taste like orange juice with crushed ice and a little bit of sugar. Some for Joe.
Some for me.
Some for Layla. It's a good healthy choice. When I make this for just myself, I don't put the sugar in, but because the kids would probably find the orange juice a little bit too bitter, that's okay, Joe. Just leave it there. Have a sip of your orange juice. How do you think it tastes? Good, hey? I love your thumbs up. That was great work, you guys. Woo!
It's sour.
Yes, it's sour. We're going to start working on our graniola now. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the oven and we're going to turn it on to 300 degrees. So get your parent to do that for you or to help watch you do that. Then you're going to prepare your baking sheet. I always line my baking sheets with parchment paper. You don't have to if you have a good non-stick pan, but my pans have been so well used that they're no longer no stick. So I always line it with parchment paper, and then it tells you to spray it with canola oil. So I'm doing that as well. Even though with parchment paper you probably don't have to, I'm going to do it anyway just in case. So then it tells you, and you'll see I have all my ingredients here at the table waiting to be put into the bowl. Oh, except I do not have my spoon. So you're going to get a spoon. Maybe I'll use a spatula today. You have to have something to stir it all together with, and I didn't. Okay, so we've preheated the oven, number 1. Number 2 is prepare the baking sheet. Number 3, in a large bowl, combine oats. So how much oats do we need? We need 2 cups of oats. So there's different types of oats, and when you do the cinnamon bread, if you haven't done it already, you'll hear my little spiel about oats and the difference in oats. So this one wants slow cooking oats, which are the large flake ones. And here I have a dry measuring cup, not a wet measuring cup. There's a difference. If you ever want to know how it's different, do an experiment. Take a wet measuring cup and a dry measuring cup and measure a liquid in both, and then measure something that's not liquid in both, and you'll see how big of a difference there is. It's pretty interesting. Okay, so that was the oats. Now we need a half a cup of wheat germ. Oh, you know what I did wrong already? Look at that. Always making mistakes. Oh, no, I didn't. I thought I used my half a cup, but I didn't. I used the full cup. Always got to be careful. I'm focused on talking here, so I made a mistake of not paying 100%. My bad. Okay, so half a cup of wheat germ. I don't cook a lot with wheat germ because I don't do a lot of baking anymore, but it's good for you. There's a lot of good quality products in it. And because it's such a good source of fiber, it's important for you to have it in your diet. Because a lot of people, especially people in the north for some reason, we don't eat a lot of fiber. Then we need 3/4 a cup of coconut. It asks for finely flaked. So that's what I've given you. I didn't have enough for my own recipe. So I'm just using a regular shredded coconut, which is okay as well. It'll just give it a little bit of a different texture. Sunflower seeds. Now you'll notice in your bag you might not have gotten sunflower seeds because I couldn't find any at the store that day. But what I've done is I've given you a substitute. So you might have pecans or walnuts in your 4-H in a box instead of sunflower seeds. But then I went shopping at Family Foods after I did the 4-H in a box, and I found these sunflower seeds. There was 2 different flavors. One was barbecue, and I didn't think the barbecue would be suitable for this one. And the other one was this one, honey roasted. So I checked on the back, and I checked to make sure that it was in fact made with honey, and it is. So it's not too bad for me to have honey in my diet. As a diabetic, it's not great. You shouldn't have a lot. But because there's only 2 tablespoons of these sunflower seeds, it's not going to affect me too badly. So you need to get a dry measure, again, a dry measuring spoon, and measure out your sunflower seeds or your nuts. And sesame seeds, I love sesame seeds. I especially love them toasted in food. This doesn't call for them to be toasted, but I think it gets toasted when it's baking in the oven. I don't know why, I really enjoy sesame seeds. There used to be a kind of a cracker when I was a kid, a sweetened sesame seed cracker that I used to buy. Really like them. Then you need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, don't do what I'm doing unless you know how, because I've been cooking for years and years and years. I know exactly how many shakes my salt shaker needs to do a 1/4 teaspoon, but you should probably measure yours out. I also use coarse salt, but most people have in their homes regular table salt. So coarse salt needs to be ground, and that's what this is in my salt shaker. But if you have table salt, just measure it out. It doesn't need to be ground. It's already ground and it's fine. Next, you need a tablespoon of milk. Now, this is a wet measure. It's something that you get from children's medicine. Oops, hello. Sorry about that. That's one of the things that happens when you have to video by yourself. Oh my goodness, it's not going to stay up. There we go. Okay, so I need a tablespoon of milk. And we'll pour that in. There it is. A whole big tablespoon. And it says a 1/2 cup of canola oil next, but I used my liquid measure for my honey. The honey that we got is locally made. It's made by Caden Geswin. Most of you might know Mrs. Geswin, who works at Opaskwa School. Her son Caden makes honey, and I got some from him this year. I gave everybody the liquid honey except for Layla. Layla and Naomi, you guys have honey that wasn't liquid. You can see it's kind of not clear. So what you do is you just put it in a measuring cup and you put it in the microwave for about 25 seconds and it'll liquefy. So that's what you have to do, Layla and Naomi, with yours. The rest of you already have liquid honey, so just measure out 1/3 cup. Now a trick, or you shouldn't even have to measure it. I gave you the exact amount. Haha, sorry. So a trick for when you are measuring honey though is to spray your container with canola oil or with a cooking spray first, and then put it in, and then the honey just pours right out. It doesn't stick to the sides. So that's what I did here. Or you can measure out your canola oil first, but I didn't do that because I wasn't thinking. So you need a 1/2 cup of canola oil, and I've measured out all of your ingredients for you already because I bought your ingredients in bulk because it's cheaper. So you don't even really have to measure your stuff. But you have to look on your packages to make sure you're putting the right ingredients in because it's all mixed up. Although I should say that there are some things like the oats and yeah, the oats for sure, and maybe the sugar have been, I put, they're for more than one recipe, so you would have to measure those ones out. There's the beep, my oven's ready. Sorry I'm being a little bit here and there. This wasn't as well thought out as I thought it was going to be. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so now the only ingredient that's left in this recipe is the raisins, but don't add those in yet because you don't want to roast your raisins. So you're going to take these ingredients that are in the bowl and you are going to mix them up. It looks and smells really great now. I think that I would probably like a little more crunch in mine. So if I were to make this again, I think I might want to add some of those pecans or walnuts that you guys have. I think that would be a good fit. So you'll see that your oats are getting a little bit wet, and that's what you want. You want to make sure that your ingredients are not dry anymore, that the honey and the oil and the milk are combining them and making them nice and damp. Make sure you don't see anything that's dry now. Okay, get it all mixed in. Okay, so now when you have it mixed in and you're confident that everything is nice and dry, or wet, sorry, let's go and spread it on the baking sheet. It says to spread it on the baking sheet about 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to put it on the baking sheet like this. Just clean out your bowl too so there's nothing left in the bottom. Again, it makes it easier to wash when it's cleaned and you don't have all that excess stuff going down your drain and clogging it. So it's a good idea to always clean out your bowl and your pots really well. Put that over there. Okay, so there's a big pile. Now you're going to spread it out. It says so it's 1/4 of an inch thick all around. Do you know how much an inch is? An inch? So 1/4 of an inch is probably about as big as my fingernail. Looking good. Doesn't have to be beautiful. There you go. Spread it out really nice, as even as you can. You want it to bake evenly. All right, then you're going to put it in the oven. Hello. And you're going to set your timer. Oh, I gotta go check the recipe. The timer says for 20 to 30 minutes until browned, stirring 2 or 3 times. So what's going to happen for me is I'm going to forget to stir it. So I'm going to put the timer on for 10 minutes. Oops, 10 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and I am going to stir it. Okay, the timer's gone off for the first 15 or 10 minutes. So I'm going to take it out. And as you can see, it's starting to turn down on the edges, which is good. That means it's getting nice and toasty. Just give it a little bit of a swirl around, nice and gentle so that it doesn't fall off the pan and burn you. Now, you can get your adult to help you with this, please, as it's very hot. And maybe you could help the adult with a little bit of the stirring. Or if you're Quinn, you can do this on your own because you're almost an adult. Michelle can get some help from Megan if she wants. So give it your stir and then press it down again so that it's another 1/4 inch once again. Get it nicely spread out. It's starting to smell good. It's awesome. Then you're going to put it in the oven again for another 10 minutes. There we go. Back in the oven. And I'll set the timer for another 10 minutes. Oops. Okay, so the second 10-minute segment. Timer has gone off. So let's pull it out. And wow, look how nice and toasty it's getting. And it smells so good. Getting close. So we're going to give it a stir. Now you can see in the corner here, it's a little bit darker brown. My oven doesn't have even temperature, I guess. So when I put it back in, I'll flip it around so that it's more smooth on that side. More even, cooks more evenly, I guess. Give it a good stir again. These 10 minutes are sure going by fast, eh? That was a little video joke. Sorry, I'm not holding the camera very steady as I'm stirring, but I'm holding it with my left hand and stirring with my right, and the pan is going all over the place. But yeah, you can see how nicely it's toasting. It's doing its job perfectly. We'll get that all spread out again, 1/4 inch thick on the pan. I think this granola is going to taste really good. What do you think? How does yours look? Make sure to remember to post a little video or picture. Preferably a video. Videos are more fun. Yeah, all right. I'm going to stick this back into the oven. I'm going to turn it around though so that one far corner isn't getting burnt. Put it in there like that. Turn it on for the last 10 minutes. For the final 10-minute bake of our graniola, I'm bringing it out. It smells really, really good. As you can see, it's a nice brown, beautiful color. And then they're asking us now to stir in the raisins. Everybody has raisins in their package. It calls for 1/2 cup of raisins, so measure those out. Now, even if you don't like raisins, add them into your recipe anyway, because it's good to try. It's good to follow the recipe in the book, and then it's good to try something new. So I'm not sure if putting them in while the recipe is still warm, if that will make the raisins taste a little bit different maybe. There's only one way to find out. And then once you've tried it and you still don't like them, that's okay. You don't have to eat them. So give it a nice stir. And you can use granola on a lot of different foods. You can use it on your cereal, on your ice cream. You can take it a little bit farther and make it into granola bars if you like. There's a lot of good things to do with granola. And there's lots of whole wheat or whole grains in it, the oats and the wheat germ, that type of thing, which have lots and lots of health benefits. But like any other food, don't eat it in excess. Just have a nice normal portion of granola. So once your raisins are incorporated into the mix, spread it out again and let it cool off. So my granola has cooled off now, and I am going to enjoy a bowl of granola with some milk for my healthy snack. And the rest I have put into a container with a tight lid, and I will save it for somebody else, or maybe even myself. Who knows?
And a picture of our breakfast.
Because that's what we made, and it's beautiful.
And it looks so